Namaskar, Jai Hind, Aum Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Aum Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Jai Shri Ram. Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja, Nija Mana Mukura Sudhari, Bharanau Raghubhara Bimala Jasu, Jodayak Falachari, Buddhihin Tanu Janike, Sumirau Pavana Kumar, Bala Buddhi Vidya Dehu Mohi, Arahu Cālīsā Bikar. Hanuman Chalisa in human challenges, not inhuman challenges, but Hanuman Chalisa in human challenges. The 40 plus 3 humbling channels of humming chisels, presenting to you exactly on the occasion of the 400th mahā-samādhi or punya-tithi or death anniversary of its author at the powerfully consecrated assi-ghāṭ at vārā-nasi. The phenomenally powerful, popular, with over 5 billion views for 7 cloned versions, all of hari-haran, being merely one of the hundreds of its singers on just YouTube alone. Short and sweet HANUMAN CHALISA, consisting of 2 prologue dōhās plus 40 chaupais plus 1 epilogue dōhā in the Awadh or Awadh, derived from Ayodhya, a language of eastern Uttar Pradesh, a precursor along with Braj to Hindi much later, by gō-sva-ami tuḻasi-dās. Gō-sva-ami tuḻasi-dās, 1543 to 1623. With the advaitik insight conduit, yes, nothing comes directly from me. It's all rooted through the universal intelligence, for it has to reach you and it needs a tap, and I'm just that tap at the right moment. Yes, my name is, as a surprise for many of you, the name given at birth was tuḻasi-dharan, and I'm singing to you tuḻasi-dās' composition. tuḻasi-dharan alias harūrsam, both named after the leaves of holy basil or tuḻasi from our own social forest or vrindā-vanā of societal traditions, culture and heritage, taking the pride of place. A person very, very close to my heart very surprisingly requested me this week, hope all's well, if and whenever possible, can you give me the meaning of Hanuman Chalisa in simple English, please? I was excited, except for the restriction to simple English, because in my simplistic view, all of English is simple, and it's in fact a funny little language, as I used to teach my daughter and nephews. By the way, despite being a phenomenal Sanskrit Pandit, gō-sva-ami tuḻasi-dās wasn't allowed to draft the Hanuman Chalisa in Sanskrit, which is what he tried, in fact, first of all. That too, despite his repeated attempts, for the best Sanskrit version was already well in place more than 7,000 plus years earlier, thanks to Valmiki Maharishi's Sundarakandam chapter of the original, erased overnight every night by none other than Kashi Vishwanath himself, Shiva, our own nothingness. Yes, every day this great Sanskrit Pandit living in Kashi, tuḻasi-dās, used to write the verses of Hanuman Chalisa in Sanskrit, and when he got up the next day, that verse was erased. When this kept happening repeatedly, he got really shocked and he went and appealed to Shiva in the Kashi Vishwanath Mandir. What is happening? Why is this so? Then Shiva told him that the very best Sanskrit version was composed already 7,000 years ago. Why do you bother? Do it in the language which the people of today can understand. And they were speaking mostly in eastern Uttar Pradesh, the language of Ayodhya, Awadh, and therefore he composed not only the Hanuman Chalisa, but a version of the entire Ramayana called the Ramcharitmanas, which is a very popular version, almost as popular as Valmiki Ramayana, if not more, amongst many people. So hope my videos wouldn't be erased too, in case a simpler English version has been posted by someone already. As is my wont, I promptly responded to this person who had requested me for this simple English translation, saying, I am absolutely bindas, totally immune to external situations, yet blissfully ecstatic. And the external situations that I'm immune to include, of course, those of my own body, mind, and intellect, BMI too. And I'm sure, I said to this person, you are heading towards that same state too, sooner or later, if you aren't there already, especially with your interest now towards the instantaneously super powerful Hanuman Chalisa. We've heard of superpowers. This is a super powerful chant. understand. In spite of not being in Sanskrit, being in the local language of the simpletons of those times, Awadh or Awadhi, yet it has so much power, not only because of the Shabda, but also because of the Artha, and which is what we will be discussing in this series of 42 videos. There are 43 verses, 40 chaupais, 2 dōhās as a prologue, and 1 dōhā as an epilogue. I will cover the first 2 dōhās, which I already sang for you, or at least attempted to sing at the beginning today in this video, and then we will go with 1 chaupai each day, and then finally, after we finish the 40 chaupais, the last dōhā will be covered in a separate episode as well. Hope that works for all of you. It will indeed, as I said to this person, be my sheer pleasure to provide you with a simple English translation of these really sweet and endearing 40 stanzas as soon as I can. And here I am within a day or two, because the best things can't be delayed despite my ophthalmic condition. In the meantime, I told this person, continue listening to it. Don't wait for me to finish giving you the meanings of all the 40 stanzas, but continue listening to the entire HANUMAN CHALISA, all of the 43 stanzas, while engaging in slow and deep rhythmic breathing. Rhythmic like drums, but definitely much slower. And that's what I'd strongly recommend to all of you viewers, to keep listening to the song as you listen to these meaningful videos. So let's dive right in with Dōhā number 1. As I already recited it for you, it is Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raja Nija Man Mukur Sudhari Bharanau Raghubar Bhimala Jasu Jo Dayak Falachari. I'm trying to break the words into simpler parts, especially the compound words, so that you may already start guessing. If you know a little bit of Hindi, you might guess it, but nonetheless, I'm going to provide it for you in simpler English, because that seems to be the more contemporary language of today, not only around the world, but unfortunately even in Mechalais, India, unless and until we transform ourselves to the Sanskritized Sanatana Bharat, the dream which has to be fulfilled sooner or later. So this dōhā is a very, very important part of the HANUMAN CHALISA. Many people leave out the dōhās thinking that they are extraneous to the HANUMAN CHALISA. Yes, Chalisa means 40, and those chaupais are the heart and core of it. But this packaging is what gives it so much power. Because in the Guru Puja also, with the Shodasha Samskaras, we say at every line, Shri Guru Charana Kamalebhyo Namaha. When we offer the 16 entities, what are they? We first of all invite the Guru. And why am I talking about this Guru Puja over here? Because the dōhā, or the entire HANUMAN CHALISA for that matter, starts with Shri Guru Charana. And that same Shri Guru Charana is the starting 3 words of the Guru Puja's Shodasha Samskaras, where we offer an avahanam, an invitation, an asanam, a seat, padyam, to wash the feet, argyam, to wash the hands, achamnyam, to quench the thirst, snanam, to cleanse the entire body, vastram, to clothe the body, protect it, yajñopavitam, to remind oneself of the responsibility. In the case of the Guru, he is responsible for the entire universe, because the Vishwa Guru that we are talking about over here, Hanuman himself. And then we offer pushpam, the flower, for fragrance as well as its softness, chandanam sameta gandham, to cool the third eye. This is a wonderful Shaligram Shilaki Pavitra paste that I use on a regular basis for some of you who are inquiring about what I wear at my third eye or Agnya Chakra. Here's Hanuman on the Srimad Bhagavad Gita chariot of Sri Krishna, the charioteer, and the owner Arjuna at the rear. And this is a very special chariot. If Hanuman were to leave, the entire chariot would burn up. In fact, that's precisely what happens at the end of the Kurukshetra war. Continuing with the 16 items, we talked about the Chandanam Sameta Gandham, again for fragrance like the flower, but more importantly to cool down. Then Dhupam, again for the Nasika, for the wonderful fragrance. Nanavida Deepalankara, for the Padmalochana. Then the Kadali Phalam Sameta Naivedyam, the bananas or plantains along with the cooked food. Salads would be even better, fruit and or vegetable. Followed by Tambulam Sameta Shri Phalam, the betel leaves, the betel nuts, and coconut, which need to be broken and opened up, which is one of the main purposes of the HANUMAN CHALISA, as we shall see when we go forward. I assure you, the remaining videos, one for each of the chaupais, will be fairly short. This one is an introductory video, and so I wanted to create the motivation for those of you who are not not already motivated, of course, and fill in some gaps in understanding if at all they happen to be there with some of you or your co-viewers and your children whom I want to get hooked onto this as soon as possible. Because amongst all of what Sanatana Dharma has to offer, fortunately this particular Hanuman Chalisa, for the right reasons, has picked up in popularity, especially in North India but also in South India, to a large extent amongst our youngsters and even children, and hopefully that will give a peek into the rest of the wonderful scriptures of Sanatana Dharma, especially the Shrutis, which is the Vedamata, the Brahmanas, Samhitas, Aranyakas, and the Upanishads or Vedanta, apart from the Ashtadasha Puranas and the Dvi-itihasas of Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the many Granthas which are contributed by great rishis over time like Adi Shankaracharya. Continuing with the Shodasha Samskaras, we finally offer an Aratrikam, which is the Arati, and at the end Pushpanjalim. And for each one of them we say Shri Guru Charana Kamalebhyo Namaha. Same first three words occur over here, and which is why I want you to focus on it. Coming to the meaning of the first prologue dōhā, Shri is an epithet of the first and foremost deity, which is the deity of the Mooladhara Chakra, the root foundation deity, Ganapati, Ganesha. In fact, his Visarjanam will be tomorrow on the Chaturdashi. He comes on the Chaturthi of Bhadrapāda Shukla Paksha and leaves on the Chaturdashi. The Visarjanam, which was popularized to such a wonderful extent by Lokamanya Bala Gangadhara Tilak, not only to enhance one's spiritual quotient, but also the patriotic quotient, and eventually help in the interaction, socialization, and unification of Bharatiya in order to achieve our freedom and independence. In fact, in the Ashtotara Shatanamavali, or 108 names of Ganesha that I shared with you in a recent video, you would have seen that out of the 108 names, quite a few of them have Shri in that. In fact, Shri can be prefixed for everything like Aum Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, etc. But in particular, in the name itself, there is Shridhaya, Shri Karaya, Shri Pradaya, Shri Pradayakaya, Shri Pataye, etc. We also have Ramarchitaya, because Rama invoked Ganapati or Ganesha in order to enable his army to cross over to Sri Lanka before the war with Ravana. So that Shri is so very important, not only in the Guru Puja and in the Hanuman Chalisa, but also as an epithet of not only prosperity or Lakshmi, the energy to go towards our goal Lakshya, Narayana, but also in terms of it being an epithet of Ganesha himself. Let's get into the meaning of the first dōhā. The prosperously executive. In other words, we have wealth or money, and using that we can do a lot of activities. We can execute. Without money or wealth, it's very difficult to execute a lot of tasks in this material world. But as Patanjali Maharishi says in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra's very first line, Atha Yoga, means only those who have gone through it all in the material world and found that nothing works the way it is supposed to work, at the end of the day, they have to fall back on the unifying or unificatory path of yoga. So here we start with Shri, which means the prosperously executive, and we say Shri Guru, which means Gu redeeming. That means that which removes darkness, or the Gu, that which is unwanted. Now, what is unwanted here? Shri Gu. Many people translate this in very simplistic ways. Though I'm using simple English here, I do not want to dilute the powerful spiritual impact of tuḻasi-dās in the Hanuman Chalisa. And therefore, what I'm talking about here is the prosperity itself over a period of time you recognize to be the Gu. That's what is making you stuck up. The more you have, the more you want, and seems to be a never-ending process. And in this process, we have lost track of going forward in other dimensions of who we are. We only want our physical growth, but we are ignoring our emotional growth, intellectual growth, energetic growth, and most importantly, the spiritual evolution. The prosperously executive, Shri, Gu redeeming, Guru, mobilizers, Charana. Literally taken, it is bowing down to the Guru's feet, what is very beautifully described as a lotus feet, and taking the dust out of it in order to cleanse our heart and to be able to see things the way they are, rather than the distorted way that we have been seeing things. But there's far more to it than that, because here we are talking about Charana, as Chara means the movement, the dynamics, and therefore Charana refers to the mobilizers, materialistic, filth regenerated, dispassionate, because Saroja means that which is born, Janma, out of Saro, which is muddy waters. Sarovar, as you know, is a river containing clay, mud, sand on the riverbed and in the banks too. As it flows, in spite of the dirt, you can see that lotuses bloom on it. That is Saroja. That's dispassion. That dispassion is in the presence of materialistic filth regeneration. regenerated dispassion in the presence of materialistic filth, but in fact, not just ignoring its presence or tolerating it, but regenerating our dispassion out of it. Yet exuberantly lively and fundamentally resourceful topsoil, Raja, Saroja Raja, Charana Saroja Raja. The dust of the lotus feet is what most people would simplistically translate this as. But the way I see it, the prosperously executive, go-redeeming mobilizers, materialistic filth regenerated, dispassionate, and yet exuberantly lively and fundamentally resourceful topsoil, or Raja, has a miraculously phenomenal effect in transforming our beginningless true mind, Nija Mana, Manas, mind. Most people are familiar with Nija, truth. But why Nija is truth? Because it is Ni Janma, that is without a beginning. So that's why I say this topsoil, which gives us food, but once it is touched by the Guru's feet or the mobilizer who can convert all of this materialistic goo and recycle it into something that is fodder for our spiritual growth as well, then topsoil has a miraculously phenomenal effect in transforming our beginningless true mind, Nijamana, to do what? To reflect. Mukura is the mirror. So to reflect clearly and consciously upon its inherently progressive path. Sudhari, even in Kannada we say Dari is path, and Sudhari is to purify, or rather to get into a progressive path. Su is progressive, Dhari is a aggressive path, so a progressive path. The second line of this first dōhā, Goswami Tuḻasi-dās says, the body, mind and intellect that we have been endowed with, the BMI toolkit, venerates, or varanau, we'll say varnanai in Tamil also, that is varanau, venerate. The English word also seems to have the same root, because according to Will Durant, the American historian, Sanskrit is the mother of all languages, not just of Bharat, but of the entire Vishwa, or the world. So the BMI, the body, mind, intellect, venerates, that is the physicality, the emotionality and the intellectuality. Venerate whom? The boon of dispassions, that is Ragu Vara. Vara, to give a boon. Ragu is essentially coming from Raga Dvesha. Raga is a lot of passionate liking. Ragu is somebody who has overcome that sensual disposition to look at the finer aspects, the subtler aspects, or the more longer lasting aspects of life. When we say Ragu Vara, is coming from Raghu's dynasty, or Raghu is a king who is an ancestor of Rama, and so Ragu Vara or Raghuvaran or Raghunandan, etc. words or synonyms used for Rama. But since the time when Hanuman helped reunite Sita and Rama, our mind and our soul, both of them accepted him as their son. In fact, when Hanuman presents the ring as a very tiny little monkey to Sita, she says, "Oh my dear son." And when Hanuman takes back that news about Sita's well-being to Rama, who's searching for her, then he also says, "You're like my son." And therefore, even though Sita Rama had Lava and Kusha as their biological children, Hanuman is considered as their eldest son. And therefore, he is also belonging to the same dynasty of Raghu. The term Raghuvara or the name Raghuvara can be used to describe anybody in that dynasty, either Rama or Hanuman. And since we're talking of HANUMAN CHALISA here, it applies to Hanuman. What it truly means is the boon of dispassions, unblemished. Vimala. Mala is dirt, blemish, certain black marks on the character. And unblemished is Vimala. In fact, Reliance Industries clothing line, I don't know if it's still available, but for a long time, very popular line was called as Vimal, that which is not dirty, which is pure, which is clean all the time for the clothing. But here we're talking of unblemished fame, because Vimala Yasha. Yasha, of course, in many of these Awadhi or Awadh language or Audi language, you would see that corresponding Sanskrit words, you replace sh with sa, you replace ya with ja, you replace v with b, which many Bengali people also do for that matter. These simplifications give a certain beauty, certain sweetness. It's like Maralai amongst little kids whose seemingly meaningless words, chatter, is also like a song to the mother and the father, the parents, and those who love the kid or the baby, right? Similarly, here, though I say Yasha, while singing, we would sing it as Jasu, and Vimala, we would sing it as Bimala, etc. Okay, because V becomes B and Yasha becomes Jasu, which Jo bestows Dayaka, all the fourfold fruits, Dharmartha Kama Moksha, Falachari, as Tuḻasi-dās says. What are these? Dharma is righteousness, Artha is prosperity, Kama is satisfaction of desires, and liberation. So righteousness, prosperity, satisfaction, and liberation. All four. In fact, everything everything that is a goal of a human being can be categorized in one of these four, or as an interface between them. Pretty much everything is covered, and that's what we get out of this whole chant. The body, mind, and intellect venerate the boon of dispassion's unblemished fame, which bestows all the fourfold fruits of righteousness, prosperity, satisfaction, and liberation. Then we move on to Doha number 2. Buddhihīna tanu janike sumirau pavan kumar balabuddhi vidya dehu mohi harahu kalesh vikar. Finite nature of the intellect, buddhihīna. You see, tuḻasi-dās is claiming himself to be buddhihīna, without an intellect. But actually what it means, a recognition of anything finite, however large it might be. You might be a pandit, you might be a professor, you might be one of the leading intellectuals in the civil society, but still finite. Compared to infinity, any finite quantity, however large it might be, is always negligible and in fact akin to zero. So we say finite nature of the intellect, buddhihīna. That's the humility with which a bhakta usually presents himself or herself, be it Mirabai or Tukaram or Surdas or Bhakta Ramdas, the 63 Nayanmars or the 12 Alvars, and the great saints of Maharashtra, the Vachanakaras, the Madhva Bhaktas of Karnataka, Kerala, and every state pretty much, Bengal, etc., have produced great bhaktas who always are very humble. But even for a jnani, this has profound meaning and impact as well. Finite nature of the intellect, buddhihīna, entrusted in this temporary body, thanu, being deciphered, janike. That is, we are recognizing that in spite of being so productive, so intelligent, so academically bright and successful, we recognize all of this, whether it's in the brain or every cell of our body or in the gut, all of these put together is also still finite. Not just of this lifetime, if you accumulate all that over many lifetimes that you have lived, still it's very large but finite. And compared to the universal intelligence, which is infinite, we are buddhihīna. That means without any intellect whatsoever. So the finite nature of the intellect, entrusted in this temporary body, being deciphered, being known, becoming aware of it, we recollect. Sumirau, of course in Hindi, or more importantly Sanskrit, we would say smaran, which is memory. We recollect Sumirau compared to the source languages, the pure Sanskrit, or the source of that, which is Vedic Bhasha of Sanatana Dharma. There are vowels inserted between compound consonants as well. Sma is what is the starting of smaran or memory. Here we say Sumirau, our purifying life breath's youthful offering. So this is what we remember. Our purifying life breath's youthful offering. Pavana Kumara. Pavana is wind and Kumara is its son. Pavana is when it's outside and Pavana Kumara is when the same wind is inside. Now that's just the gross part of the prana. As we have already discussed, there are the Pancha Mahaprana, the Pancha Upaprana, and 2 additional pranas as well, totally Dvadasha or a dozen pranas, talking of subtler variations. But essentially, the way we recognize it at the beginning stage of our sadhana is as our breath. Finite nature of the intellect, entrusted in this temporary body, being deciphered, we recollect our purifying life breath's youthful offering. Pavana Kumar, strength, bala. What are we seeking now? We have recognized ourselves to be finite entities if we think of ourselves as the body, mind, and intellect, but we want to go beyond that wrong identification to an identification with ourself, which is infinite. So we seek for the body, mind, and intellect. What do we seek? Strength, bala, intelligence, which is buddhi, and pedagogy or vidya are sought. Dehu, give me. In Hindi also we say they, right? They are sought by whom? Not by me or you, because we are ourselves. We have it all. In fact, it is ourself from which we are seeking when we think of ourselves as BMI. So are sought, dehu, by the BMI, mohi, so as to exterminate, harahu, kidnap, hijack, exterminate, harahu, what? 11 quantities which are categorized into just 2 over here, bunched up into 2 sets by tuḻasi-dās here. What do we want to be exterminated? First of all, we want strength, intelligence, and pedagogy for the body, mind, and intellect. Why? So that the body, mind, intellect can then exterminate its own 5-fold deficiencies and 6-fold distortions. So what are these? 5-fold kleshas. In fact, in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, chapter 2, verse 3, all these 5 kleshas are defined. That is, deficiencies are defined. What are they? In fact, one leads to the other. We start with ignorance and non-awareness. Avidya. Just now we asked for vidya. We are saying why? Because we want to destroy avidya. Darkness cannot be fought with, but once light comes in, darkness has to vanish. Similarly, once vidya comes in, avidya has to leave. Once Lakshmi comes in, alakshmi has to leave. That is, the focused energy, once it is there, this diversions that we have, in which all of our energies are dispersed in many different ways, that will stop automatically. The first klesha is avidya or ignorance, which leads to asmita. Asmita is a beautiful word. We can either break it as a smita, that which is not smita. Smita means just a gentle smile which blossoms like a flower. Now when we say asmita, we are not blossoming. We are stuck up in what we are doing. We are not progressing. We have become stagnant. But we can also break asmita another way. Asmita. Asmi means am. Like we say I am. Taking upon false identities. Identifying with the body, mind, intellect and its role plays, of course. Asmita is egoity or ego, which is in fact not a concept in Sanatana Dharma. Because I'm talking in English, I'm using a concept which is beyond Sanatana Dharma. Because there's no fall guy called ego. Just an invention of our mind in order to absolve responsibility. We have to be responsible for whatever we are doing. We cannot put it on the ego. Truly speaking, asmita refers to those false identities because of which we have become so serious that we don't even smile. It is such a big problem, not only for oneself, but for all others around you too, if you don't smile. Life is such a short play. Instead of enjoying and smiling all the time, we put on long faces, even without a beard. And the shika, urdhvaretas, swayambhu shivalinga, jata-jhuta shika. The third klesha is raga, that is too passionate about something, hankering after something, extreme form of likes. And dvesha, exactly opposite of that, hatred, dislike at its extreme. So raga, dvesha, all of them are coming. Why? Because of avidya and asmita. Because you are ignorant, therefore you identified yourself with who you aren't, and therefore you end up with very strong likes and dislikes, which are the next two of the five kleshas. The final one is abhinivesha. Many people just call it the fear of death, but the word is so beautiful. Abhinaya, acting, and vesha is also the roles that we get into, the makeup that we put on to play a certain role. So abhinivesha is once again that same asmita, but you got so identified now with that body, mind and intellect and its roles that you do not want to get rid of it. You're holding on to it so tightly, you just don't want to give up. It's like a film actor, even after the camera has been shut down, the director and the rest of the set have left, he or she is still acting as whatever role they were playing. So identified with it, they do not want to give up. Yes, in extreme form, it's a fear of death, but essentially holding on to what is temporary. So these are the Pancha Klesha according to the Patanjali Yoga Sutra 2.3, which is what is invoked here by tuḻasi-dās as one of the things that we can exterminate once we have bala, buddhi and vidya. We can get rid of these avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. But not only that, that is the first set. The second set that we can get rid of, we can exterminate, is the sixfold distortions. We already talked about fivefold deficiencies. Now we talk about the sixfold distortions. What are they? Kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. Kama is desire, krodha, anger, lobha, greed, moha, delusion, mada, pride, vanity, matsarya, jealousy. How do I remember all of these? Well, KLM, the airline, here it is K squared LM cube, KLMMM, Kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. It's a mnemonic that I used to remember this. But anyway, these are nothing so worthy of remembering because these are the things that you want to exterminate with your bala, with your buddhi and with your vidya. Because learning is a lifelong process, not just during the first of the four stages, not only during brahmacharya with brahmana, but even during grahastha, where you're trying to earn artha. In the brahmacharya stage, you're trying to earn dharma by utilizing the brahmanas. In the grihastha stage, you're trying to earn artha or wealth through the established dharma that you've already gained during brahmacharya, but now with the help of the samhitas of the Vedas, the karma kanda. Then you get on to the third of the 4 quarters of your life into vanaprastha, and in this stage you use the aranyakas of the Vedas and gain kama, that is satisfaction. And finally, during our sannyasa stage of renunciation, we focus on the Vedanta or Upanishads, the 4th part of the Vedas, and then we are seeking moksha or liberation, the 4th of the Purusharthas, Falachari as tuḻasi-dās calls it. So these distortions and deficiencies, that is vikaras and kleshas, vikara of course in Awadh will be called vikara, accumulated hitherto in ourselves, playful journey over innumerable lifetimes. So with this, we complete the first 2 dōhās, most significant part of the HANUMAN CHALISA, though they are prior to the 40, they are the ones which make the 40 activated and therefore not a mere literary poem, but a spiritual sadhana. We will get on to the chopais, the first chopai, in the next video of this series. Till then, āñjanéyāya vidmahe ramadūtāya dhīmahi tanno haruvanta prachodayāt. Rama Lakshmana Janaki Jai Bolo Hanumān Ki Ayamatma Brahmana Kaya Mano Buddhi Jai Bolo Mahaprāṇ Ki Āñjanéyā 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 Pāhi Mām హనుమంత 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 రక్ష మాం. మారుతి 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 పాహి మాం. రామదూత 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 రక్ష మాం. అంజనీపుత్ర 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 పాహి మాం. వాయుపుత్ర 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 రక్ష మాం. భీమ సహోదర భీమ సహోదర భీమ సహోదర పాహి మాం. ప్రసన్నాంజనేయ 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 రక్ష మాం. వీరాంజనేయ 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 పాహి మాం. భక్తాంజనేయ 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 రక్ష మాం. పవనపుత్ర 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 పాహి మాం. వానర శ్రేష్ఠ వానర శ్రేష్ఠ వానర శ్రేష్ఠ రక్ష మాం. నారద శిష్య నారద శిష్య నారద శిష్య పాహి మాం. తులసిదాస్ గురవే తులసిదాస్ గురవే తులసిదాస్ గురవే రక్ష మాం. శివవతార 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 పాహి మాం. బజరంగ బలి బజరంగ బలి బజరంగ బలి రక్ష మాం. కేసరి నందన కేసరి నందన కేసరి నందన పాహి మాం. గ్రహ ముకుంద గ్రహ ముకుంద గ్రహ ముకుంద రక్ష మాం. ఓం శ్రీ గురుభ్యో నమః. ఓం జై శ్రీ హనుమాన్.